Welcome to the What's New at TapClicks webinar. Looks like we have a couple folks joining here. We'll just give it another moment and let's make sure everybody can get in and then we'll get started. So usually at the top of the hour, we usually give people that like 30-second, 1 minute kind of time frame to let them join into the webinar since everybody's getting out of meetings. It's January, all kinds of new fun stuff is going on. So we'll give people a chance to sort of jump in.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah. So, Angela, let's go ahead and go over to the next slide and we'll kind of make our introduction. So welcome to the What's New at TapClicks webinar. My name is Brian Childs and with me is Angela Hicks.
Hello.
Hello. So we're both on the product education team here at TapClicks. And we really love this webinar. It's a great opportunity to chat about the new stuff that's come out and also give a chance for some Q&A for those of you who are interested and have questions. So a little bit of quote unquote housekeeping. So we're using Zoom. This is new for us. We're really stoked with the Zoom webinar solution. That provides a lot more interaction. So we're excited to have that interaction. Think of this as like, this is a conversation amongst all of us.
Definitely more of a conversation.
please ask questions, easy questions, obviously like softballs are great, but so ask questions. You'll have a chat box in there and then we're going to be able to do a Q&A at the end of this session. So if you want to stick around and you have other questions as we go, that'd be great. And then we're also recording this session so that we can enshrine it for history. It's going to be wonderful. But let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing is that we're going to be obviously reviewing the release notes. So typically we review the release notes, and you can find those on support.tapclicks.com so that you can follow along. We highly recommend that. There's a lot of stuff in the release notes every single month. TapClicks engineers and product team just crank out all kinds of stuff. And so we kind of cover the highlights in this discussion if you're not familiar with it. But there's a lot of other stuff that's typically in those release notes. So if you want to take a look at it, we'll go on to the next slide there.
This is what you're looking for.
Yeah. That's what we're looking for. Yeah. So January 2021, it's weird for me always to do like 2021. I don't know about you, but I keep writing 20201. That's my new thing.
It's like a zip code.
Yeah, I'm just sort of like, how many numbers are in a year? So I'm still trying to figure out 2021. So that checks out. I didn't do a typo on this one. But you're looking for January 2021 release notes, and we'll just be following along with this. I think it'd be really helpful to pull that up and use it as a reference because there are some links in there to some of the different things that we're talking about.
Okay. Yeah, and if you have questions, please feel free. You should see your controls at the bottom to ask a question either using the Q&A or in the chat.
Yeah, and we're all about the Q&A and all about the chat. So please do ask questions. So what are we going to be talking about today? All right, so here's the highlights. We're going to, Brian, I'm going to talk about the orders and workflow calculator that just got released. We're really stoked on that. It's going to be really helpful for you both to understand kind of what some of the value is of the orders and workflow feature, but also if you want to have conversations with your clients, pretty cool. And then Angela and I are both going to be talking about this, some new updates to some data sources that relate to postal codes, and as those relate to geo widgets. So a good conversation there. And then Angela's going to bring it home with some smart connector template conversation. So lots of cool stuff to discuss here today.
Absolutely. So Brian, let's get into our first topic here.
Yeah, orders and workflow ROI calculator. So return on investment. I know, December, January timeframe. There's a lot of interest in, we're making budgets. We're talking about different strategies and plans. And one of the things that often gets brought up, both internally as well as with our clients, is we have a lot of conversations about return on investment, right? Yes. And return on investment in the marketing world is I think there's typically two ways of looking at return on investment, right? It's not just a matter of what have our campaigns performed, but the often hidden side of the campaign performance is also what did it take for us to deliver, right? So kind of a cost of goods sold aspect to it. And that tends to be a very operational conversation. And for those of us who are in marketing or in marketing activities, we know that sometimes that's very difficult to do. So TapClicks has put together this orders and workflow ROI calculator. So I have a trivia question for you before we get going on this one. Okay, so here's a trivia question, and actually we got a poll because we're using Zoom. We're gonna try it out, so use it for us. It'd be great. So we have interviewed thousands and used some baseline metrics in the development of this calculator to understand how agencies and different marketing operations work. So, what do you think we found as the answer for how many hours does the average agency spend on setting up a new client? Do you think it's 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours, or 10 hours? And now you should see a poll pop up. So we're going to use the poll function. We're excited about this because we're training nerds and we like this kind of interaction.
Love doing polls.
Yeah, do our poll. Go ahead and select what you think is the number that we use as our placeholder in the ROI calculator before I show the ROI calculator. And I got the poll up, but it says host can't vote, so I can't do the swing on that one. Can't throw off the numbers, so you guys should vote there, and we'll see what those results look like.
They're pretty close.
Yeah, where are we?
Kind of a nice spread. It looks like we have 78%. 85% of the attendees have chimed in on the poll. So I'm going to give you 5 more seconds.
4, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 1, 1,000.
Okay, so 4 hours was our winner, and 6 hours was the next, and then 10 hours. So surprisingly, no one picked 2 hours. That is surprising.
Yeah, I don't know if that's surprising. I wouldn't expect 2 hours.
That'd be a quick time, huh?
Yeah, I would love that. I'm sure many of us would be like, woo, 2 hours just for setting up a client. So the answer that we came up with is number C here, or the third item, which is 6 hours. So very interesting, right? So this is one of the things, this is one of the values that that TapClicks really has. And let's go ahead and go on to the, oh wow, yeah, there we go. We got the results. That looks awesome.
Yeah. So nearly half of you picked 4 hours, but our data does show 6 hours is really the average. So that's a lot of time, Brian.
That is a lot of time. And so again, this is one of the things that TapClicks that I'm really excited about with TapClicks, and I'm really excited about this ROI calculator, is what it does is it takes these kind of baseline metrics, right? Where it's like we have a very broad view on the market. We deal with a lot of large, medium-sized, and small businesses that are in the marketing space, and can make assessments about the operational aspects of those businesses. So what does the ROI calculator do? It's this really simple, relatively simple tool with some configurations. You got a couple sliders at the top, and it says, how many clients do you have? The average number of monthly campaigns. You can kind of slide those back and forth, and then basically it generates a little estimated value driver. Then you can also do some allocations of the different times that you have. You'll notice right in the middle, when you visit this page, you'll see that there is this read about them here. Right. So that link you can see next to it says the orders and workflow cost calculator makes certain assumptions. So read about them here. That actually takes you to those some of those different assumptions and placeholder values, which alludes to some of the different research that we've done. So if you're looking for that alone, going to that is a kind of a neat thing to go and view. And then of course you can get a report out of this and share that internally about sort of some of the opportunities around operations. So now the question might be for some of you, okay, orders and workflow ROI calculator. That's neat. Well, what is orders and what is orders and workflow, right?
Yeah,
let's answer that. So let's go ahead and go on to the next let's go on to the next slide. So what are we ROIing out of our orders and workflow? Well, orders and workflow is a tool that allows you, it basically automates a lot of your ad operations capabilities. And one of the things that I think is really interesting, and it's a conversation that's coming up quite a bit, relates to COVID, right? I think many of us feel like there's a light at the end of the tunnel with COVID. There's a lot of hiring activity that's taking place. There's certain signals within the economy that are saying things are moving in the right direction, et cetera. And there's a sense of this like build back better, right? Which is like, I don't want the same business that I had pre-COVID as I will after COVID. Um, and some of the things that can be done that many of our customers are looking at are around these operational considerations. Orders and workflow, what it does, it standardizes all of those. It makes a lot more transparency, a lot more visibility in those different operations, and identifies bottlenecks. And as you know, as people who are probably like us working remotely, right? I'm in the international headquarters from me, which is in Seattle right now, and Angela's Colorado. So it's like, having that transparency and all those handoffs can be challenging. And we just put up an example of one of the workflows that actually is a canned workflow that you can use right out of the box, which is just an email campaign. And I think for many of us that do agency operations, when you actually see how many handoffs there are to do something as relatively as what we might consider to be simple, like an email campaign, you can see it's like, look, there's a lot of chances for inefficiency within here. And so that takes me back to the ROI conversation, which is, wouldn't it be nice to reduce the hours for setup? Wouldn't it be nice to reduce the amount of time spent developing these? That's really what orders and workflow does. And that's what the ROI calculator helps you understand, is what some of the different value drivers are there. So I would definitely say go check it out. The ROI calculator is kind of a neat little tool available for you now.
Absolutely. Thanks, Brian. I will also call out that this example email campaign workflow, it would be nice if that were the only campaign that we were overseeing, right? But, there's a chance you have 50 email campaigns going that are in process at any given time, and then certainly other campaigns that are being run as well. So,
Yeah. And
yeah.
and workflows, as you know, all of us know, it's like setting up these workflows and setting up just even relatively simple email campaigns, for example, can just be a real bear. Like, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of handoffs. It's a lot of people involved. And you'll find that there's some different canned workflows available for things like SEO, social campaigns, etc. So pretty neat to see. It's an interesting tool, and I think the ROI calculator kind of like brings some insight into that. But so let's go ahead and go over to postal codes, geo widgets,
Yes.
all the things local. So Angela, why don't you help us out with this one?
So with postal codes for GeoWidgets, this month we actually have two different connectors that have been updated. So for those of you that are following along on support.tapclicks.com, you're going to see these connector updates. So both Centro Basis DSP and Simplify have updates that relate to zip code performance. And what this means is that we're now able to show zip code performance data, which more importantly, Brian, this means that you can plot this on a map in your dashboard and make your dashboards and reports very rich with different types of visualizations.
I do love me some plotting.
So, there has really been an evolution of how we think about zip codes, right? So, Brian, I would love for us to kind of have a discussion here.
Yeah.
So, this evolution of local, you can see on your screen, we really kind of changed the way in which we target, physical locations.
Yeah. Yeah. And I certainly would love to. This is something that Angela and I, there's a lot of things that come out, as people who are watching both the market as well as what TapClicks is developing. There's a lot of stuff focused on local, right? There's a lot of innovation. There's a lot of development that goes into local. And I would love to know, for those of you who are from agencies or media companies that are on the webinar, how do you look at local? I mean, are you using zip codes? Are you doing the geofencing? Do you do these designated market areas like the sort of Nielsen typical areas? What are you using? What is like a common sort of local strategy that you're using, or is it a mix of these? What is it that those of you who are on the webinar are using? If you want to use the chat window, we'd love to hear from you about that, or if you have any questions about it. No chats. Tough crowd. All
No
right.
chats, no chats. So, Brian, I think that again, the type of campaign and the type of client might really impact this as well. So someone, might do zip code for a print B2C client that they have, and maybe addressable for their digital marketing for a totally different client in a different industry. But I'd love to hear some thoughts in the chat if you have them.
Oh, there we go. Cool. Hey, Kara, thank you very much. So, Kara says, and you can probably see this, we do a mix of local. Zip code is by far the majority of our local, but we are also getting into addressable more. I think one of the challenges that I always have when doing any local campaign um, is trying to plot it, right? So with zip codes, it's like, here I am in Seattle. Seattle probably has, I don't know, I'm going to say maybe a dozen or more different zip codes within sort of like the Seattle core metropolitan area, and probably 3 times as many, if you go through, out of that. And it's hard to figure out what's going on with that. Now, there's some great tools within the relevant data source visualizations, like their reporting. So if I'm using, Google ads or Facebook ads, it's like I can usually see it pretty well. But what if I want to see a omni-channel campaign? I start doing zip codes and I'm having to push all those together, and I inherently lose that because I'm merging a lot of that data into one central place in TapClicks. And so zip codes can kind of be a little bit challenging with that, which is where some of the geo widget and geo or local based visualizations can really help.
Right. Kara's also pointed out that this will be great for new brands breaking into markets to see how awareness is growing.
Yep.
And Brian, we talked about this before the webinar. It's really, we have so much more data than we did 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and we're really able to kind of not put all of our eggs in one basket and just pick a market and hope we reach the right people. Right? We're
Right.
able to really get sophisticated with our targeting.
Yeah, and the other thing too is if you think about the databases or the data sources that have these updates to them, which most of this geolocated data sources are by request only, for what it's worth. But so when you think about some of the different data sources that are being updated, whether or not it's Simplify or Centro or others, all of these are programmatic advertising platforms. And so one of the cool things, if you recall from a previous What's New webinar, is that there's some low price point or low entry point programmatic platforms that allow you to run broad-based tests to identify where customers, demographic aspects of customers, where they might be. So I think that's one of the cool things here is it's like, with a programmatic platform, you can invest your dollars into letting them run tests for you to figure out who your potential buyer might be. And of course, geolocation, or I should say the location based aspect of that, of course, is a very big one now, and certainly as we come out of COVID, I think it's going to get even more. So, Kara, thanks a lot for chatting. We love that.
Yeah. So one more thing, Brian, with a new year, for those of you that maybe aren't using local as a part of your strategy yet, think about this year. And I'm sure that you're already doing some strategic planning. Is anything changing
Yeah.
for you this year?
Yeah, what's everybody thinking about when they're thinking about local, right? So we are in this time of COVID, local's really big, maybe because, I'm stuck in my house.
People are
So
staying close to
yeah,
home. Yeah.
you could probably just actually put a banner outside my window. And that's like a good local strategy. But what I think is interesting is that I've seen quite a bit of direct mail, for example, right? So I've been getting a lot of direct mail advertising, knowing that like I, as a consumer, am going out to my mail, like looking forward to go to my mailbox every day.
Right.
Um, because I'm like 80, I guess. But so is anybody having changes in their local strategy for 2021 that are coming up? Of course, you can, you know, be general. You don't need to tell the world the strategy, but anything that's interesting for people when it comes to local, or is local just kind of taking a back burner? All right. Well, let's think about that topic as we move forward. So if you have any ideas about local, feel free to throw them into the chat window.
Great. So we'll move to smart connector templates. So Brian, you might know what time it is.
Oh boy. Oh, it's Lingo
Lingo
Bingo.
Bingo.
Oh no. We got a Lingo Bingo. For those of you that are not familiar with Lingo Bingo, every time we might have a new term that we can talk about and share. So, oh, we got a Lingo Bingo. That's great.
Before we move on, I just see that we have a message in the chat. So going back to local, Kara, thanks again for chiming in here. We heard from Kara earlier that, definitely doing a mix of local, but Kara says that they have seen an influx of new paid digital programs due to the targeting it offers. So having a visual will be great to share with clients. Thanks, Kara. Appreciate you sharing that about local for us.
That's awesome.
So,
Thank you so much.
so Brian,
Lingo Bingo.
Lingo Bingo, it's time. So
it's happening.
Smart connector templates. Just wanted to define what those templates are. So the way that we create the templates, I'm sure a lot of you have used all sorts of templates. Maybe you've used one today already, but TapClicks works alongside the data source vendor to create the template. And what this means is that you can easily install connectors with the optimum settings. So Brian, we kind of have a compounded set of words here. So Lingo Bingo, just want to make sure that it's clear. With a smart connector, you really have the ability to bring your data in from just about anywhere. So whether your data source vendor is providing you data in an email, if you're saving those files on Google Drive, you have them in a Google Sheet, maybe you have a database set up, FTP, bringing your data in from a lot of different places is just how a smart connector works. Right. So for anyone that has set that up, it does require you to map the fields. So what that means is really just letting TapClicks understand the context of your data. So, a campaign ID, is that a metric? No, it's just a number, it's an identifier, right? So that mapping step is really what kind of gets skipped here. So with a Smart Connector template, all you have to do is choose your template. So if I have Hulu data, I'm going to choose my Hulu template. And I'll point out we're in the new UI on this slide. So if your instance of TapClicks looks a little different, you really just need to go over to data sources. And the Smart Connectors marketplace that has all these templates, it's at the very bottom of your screen. So Brian, when you're logged in, you just scroll down to the bottom. Yep. Locate the marketplace, choose your template, and then on the configuration page, like all of this gets filled in for you.
Yeah, it's such a time saver. And what I think is great too, there's another aspect of the templates as well that Angela's alluding to, which is, or she mentioned previously, which is that these are developed with these different data sources, right? So one of the common things is it's like, well, this is how I'm doing it, but maybe there's, is this the relevant data, or I'm using some third party and I want to bring my data in. What I love about these templates is these are built with the help and the assistance and the guidance of the data sources themselves, like each one of these applications. And so when you're using one of these templates, they're giving you maybe a subset of the data that they have available, but the stuff that everybody uses, right? So I think that's really such a cool thing, including things like that unique field, which is always, sort of like, oh, how do I determine uniqueness? Sometimes that can be a little trial and error. Here it's like, boom, just, there it is, ready to go for you.
Yeah, so mapping the fields, really simple to do. You can see in this example here, like we have two different dates, right? We have a start date and an end date. And again, this vendor helped to make sure that we have all the right fields. So you really only have the data that you need in TapClicks.
Yeah, so keep an eye out for those. You'll see these, the connector team cranks these things out, and sometimes as you're going through the release notes, I know everybody here reads them religiously, right? Obviously, you're waiting up all night long for the release notes to come out. So when you see the release notes and you see these templates, it's helpful to take note of them, right? And think, is that a data source that I'm considering using? Or as you're trying new data sources, right? We're in the beginning of the year, so people are typically going out and looking at maybe new different software solutions or adding things to their portfolio for their clients. As you do that, I'd always go and just check, go into TapClicks, type in the name of that a data source and see whether or not they have either an instant-on connector or one of these smart connector templates, because you can always just search by those. And it's a good way to see, like, hey, is this going to fit together with the rest of my data, or am I going to have to do something to bring that data in with a smart connector using a different method?
That's a great point, Brian. So use that search at the top of this data sources page to find what you need. I think that's a great idea. Now we do have a few minutes left, just a few here, and I would love to spend a couple of minutes addressing any questions that you have. So we did not go through every last thing in the release notes. There are a number of other things that were released. So we have some updates on other data sources. Take a moment to look at those. Let us know if you have any questions about that or anything else.
Yeah, we'd love to answer any questions you have. And just like Angela was saying, it's, we have a lot of updates this month in particular. You'll notice that there's a lot of updates to different fields, and some additional data views, and there's been some updates to some APIs. And so those are all the kinds of things that you're going to find in the release notes. You're going to find a lot of stuff. Again, the connector team really cranks stuff out. Data is the core of everything here at TapClicks, and you'll notice that every single month you're going to see updates to data views, to different metrics that are available to you, and this month is no different. So yeah, any questions? So Helen, great question, Helen. Thank you very much. We have a question, which is the zip code data plot to maps now available to everyone? I believe that the geo widget function, or the plotting to maps, is a by request only, or only for certain tiers, if I understand that correctly.
That's right. Yeah. So if you're interested, Helen, please talk to your success manager and find out more about that.
Yep. Yeah, it's a powerful tool, and there's even some there's even more developments going on with that. So just if you're interested in plotting to maps, um, definitely +1 that with your success manager. Let them know that you're interested in that, because that kind of feedback is always helpful for the product organization to know when to prioritize things. So if you're really looking for map related functions, uh, send that over to the success managers, and they'll be able to know where to put it in terms of adding that to the priority list. But there are some of those features, and you can get access to them. You just have to talk to your success manager. They'll know different paths available for that.
Brian, I'll also say, we talked about zip codes, but what we know about these geo widgets, what we've seen, you and I, is that we can actually use Latin long information. So don't
Mm,
just think about zip code. Imagine, a map being able to really change its scale, whether you want to look at a zip code, zoom out to state, or really hone in on a specific area.
right. And I think another interesting thing to consider too is, um, when you think about one of the important or powerful aspects of TapClicks, is that you're bringing together a bunch of data, and you're doing joins of that data. You're developing a database by bringing together all of your different applications, including having an automated fetch capability. So what that allows you to do is, if you do have other visualization software, one of the nice things is that TapClicks does have, gives you this database you can always reference and have portability. So if you're using other visualizations, Google Data Studio or others, this is a great opportunity to say, TapClicks is my reference database, or my database of record, and then I can always send that data out to other visualization solutions. Google Data Studio being the popular ones that people are using. So think about that as well. It's your database of record for a lot of your marketing activities, and there's different ways of getting to that. Cool. All right. Well, Helen, thanks for the question. That's great. And Kara, thanks for the comments and questions earlier. And I think if no one else has any additional questions, we will see you next month, and we look forward to having you in the next What's New at TapClicks webinar.
Thanks for
Thanks a lot.
joining today.